So today we are going to talk about Preface to Lyrical Ballads by William Wordsworth. The essay. We are going to be into the essay. Okay. Fine. So the first volume of these poems. Actually, I'm going to get you the main points in the paragraph. Of course, I told you in which context we have this essay written, or Wordsworth and Coleridge. What was in between them in connection with the publication of lyrical ballads? What happened? They were really good friends, and later they became almost estranged because of the problems the problems that occurred in between. Okay, you saw the way Wordsworth made life difficult for Coleridge by moving his poem or not giving his a name in the title page, and later with the second edition even giving a preface almost all of a sudden, or in a way it is not actually a book that comprises many poems on the part of both of these persons to get a preface as if it is the common opinions of both of them, but one doesn't take it in that way, or Coleridge actually doesn't agree with the most of the points made. He was feeling very bad, and another book came out on the part of Coleridge, that is called the Biographia Literaria. Now we are going to talk about the Preface to Lyrical Ballads by William Wordsworth. So the first paragraph talks about it being an experiment. I told you neoclassic rigidity, or the already existing trend in literature or trends in writing, that is something entirely different. The trends in literature, trends in writing structure itself is very different, or was very different. With the neoclassic rigidity, we have seen what was happening, or what the neoclassic rigidity didn't permit people or writers the creative mindsets to produce what they wanted, or write what they wanted to, or the way they wanted to. So Wordsworth, Coleridge and many other romantic writers, or the persons belonging to romantic literature, romantic revival, if you want to specify the term, the romantic revival, they wanted to bring out an experimental method in form, subject matter, theme, everything. Everywhere they wanted to try something new. So in the very beginning itself, he tells that this is almost like an experiment. Even not just the preface, the whole lyrical ballads, the text itself is an experiment, or has been an experiment. And what their plan was to write in the real language of men. That is, to avoid the unlikely complication. That means the complication which really made the poem somewhere that is very difficult to digest for the common people. It is sticking on to rules, but using some high metaphors or very difficult words and symbols, so that it was very difficult for the people, common people or the layman, to read out or to understand the poems that came in the previous time period or previous era, or the very time itself, the very time of the era itself. You saw the neoclassic rigidity and many other writers sticking on to this method. So these people wanted to challenge this, and the real language of men they wanted to write. So this is the pleasure and quantity of, the pleasure and quantity of pleasure may be imparted. He promises the readers, or he claims that in our read and in our writings, in our poems, a kind of pleasure shall be assured or imparted, so that the reading will bring you to the brink of pleasure. That is, you will be enjoying reading the poems. Apart from sticking on to rules, apart from being worried about meaning or in-depth meaning, or somewhere going for some kind of brainstorming, it is just about the reading for getting pleasure. It's not for getting pleasure, it's for getting pleasure, you have our poems intact in front of you. So this is all with the first paragraph actually. So the first person, just wait. So first paragraph of Preface to Lyrical Ballads. Okay, read it. Yeah, start reading.
Yes.
Yeah, start reading.
Okay. The first volume of this poem has already been
Submitted.
submitted
Submitted to. Submitted to General Percival. It was published
as an experiment which I hope might be of some use to
ascertain
by
fitting to
material
metrical arrangement.
Of man is stated of vivid sensation, that short of pleasure, and that quantity of pleasure may be impart which a poet may rationally
endeavor to impart. Vaitha.
First paragraph.
First paragraph. Just repeat it.
The first volume of these poems has already been submitted to General Percival. It was published as an experiment, which I hoped might be of some use to ascertain how far into metrical arrangement a selection of the real language of men in a state of vivid sensation, that sort of pleasure and that quantity of pleasure may be imparted, which a poet may rationally endeavor to impart.
Exactly, fine. The Coleridge of whichever romantic writers, they were going for an experiment. You know the way they wanted to make it as bring it out as an experiment, because already established the ways of writing or appreciation, already it is decided with those who stick down to rules and metrical compositions, neoclassic rigidity, and actually romanticism was a fighting against this neoclassic rigidity, right? Or in a way, a challenge to that. We will write poems of a very simple kind, and the themes also, subject matter, everything will be somewhere simple. That was the stance taken by them. Okay, now we are moving to paragraph number 2. So even simpler paragraph. It's probable effects of these poems. In this paragraph, I am going to talk about the probable effects of the poem. Actually, Wordsworth himself gives it as just as an introduction, not the whole effects he is talking, but he tells that the readers may get from my preface the probable effects of this poems, or a common pleasure shall be availed by once you read our poems. Not my poems, the whole canon of romantic writings will get you a pleasure that you may not even have thought about. So you have been sticking, or you have been coming across or the poems which are really difficult, and you never could enjoy. You just think about reading something for the examination. The very beautiful novel, even that you will not get as the means of availing pleasure. You will be concentrating upon certain. You will be giving, as we talk in deconstruction and all, as I say, paragraph after paragraph, line by line, points you will be noting. But in a very simple reading, you are reading it for the sake of enjoyment. That reading is entirely different. So here, in this poems, actually he tells that till date you came across poems, those treated with a very serious subject matter, with much metrical arrangement, composition. Say, just think about my talking about, while teaching a poem, I'm talking about prosody, more of prosody, many rules, meter, rhyme scheme, I mean, we have already come across while teaching poetry paper, I introduced you the elements of prosody. Right, so meters, different 4 or 5, so meters, different kinds. If a teacher comes and teaches, or if you are reading a poem only upon giving importance to these meters, or any other poetic devices, nothing is told about the subject matter. Just see the way you will not be getting much pleasure. So that is the point at which this romantic revival comes, and these people introduces this romanticism in literature again. That is after it's losing in the context of English literature, especially if you want to, with the Puritanism and many other in the forthcoming centuries, we saw only very serious writings on the part of very serious men, literary men who stick down to rules and all. So creativity is almost all about much pleasure, as well as you're free to express your ideas. Fine. So in that regard, paragraph 2, he tells that it's a probable effect of this, from the common pleasure we are going to afford here. The common pleasure I'm going to talk about. Okay. So I was talking about the way it will, of course, I expected this dislike and this, the kind of attack on this experimentation kind of poetry. Of course, we had to expect a lot of dislike. Who should dislike it, or how disliked it, I was well aware of. So that is the reason why this preface is needed. Of course, right? You might have understood what he means. We told about the Edinburgh Review and Quarterly Review, the very famous journals that attacked these people, their poetry, the whole the canon of romantic writing. So they couldn't afford this kind of a lack of seriousness all of a sudden. So till date, the English literature, the canon, that was all of them producing much of very serious subject matters and very serious themes and methods of writing. But here, all of a sudden, these people come and talk about solitary reaper, sun, flowers, stones, everything. And again, that could not be afforded by the established canons of the existing norms of that time. So that again they got attacked, and they expected this. But this Edinburgh Review and Quarterly Review, actually Wordsworth was furious about, and that is why he wanted to get an explanation all of a sudden. In that regard, with this second edition of Lyrical Ballads, he added a preface. That background knowledge is already given to you, so hope it is clear. Okay. Now we are into the third paragraph of the essay. Okay, preface to Lyrical Ballads, the third paragraph. See, anxious for the success of these poems. Of course, they are anxious for the success of these poems. A class of poetry, now he tells, a class of poetry would be produced well adapted to the interest of mankind permanently. That means, of course, there will be challenges. Of course, these strict men of this time may be challenging and opposing and criticizing us, but sooner or later you will understand, the whole world literature will understand that this is a class of poetry that is well adapted to interest mankind permanently. Of course, that is true as well. That time they had to face a lot of challenges and criticisms, because as I told you, they were trying to swim against the strong current of neoclassic rigidity, rules, regulations, everything. But what happens here, that in the coming years, later centuries, Wordsworth and Coleridge or many other romantic writers were praised like anything for the kind of poetry they created, or they contributed to the literary canon. Okay, so he tells a class of poetry would be produced well adapted to the interest mankind permanently. You do not know that solitary reaper, but we see them in one form or other in all around us. Right? We see people singing in the paddy field, and we can connect the idea, connect these people with that solitary reaper. Also, they also may be having a lot of problems. Their songs may be melancholy, their songs contain profound feelings. All these we can connect with our lives. The flower, beautiful flower. The passion you feel for sunset and sunrise. Daffodils. If not daffodils, for other flowers we feel. We are fond of gardens. We are fond of flower bunches. So this is the way human beings have universal preferences as well as passions. And these people were trying to copy these passions in their poems. Not unlike the neoclassic people or the role-bound writers who were talking even metaphysical poetry. Of course, you know, in history paper, metaphysical poetry. It's something beyond our sensational power. That is, they are talking something very serious. They're talking something very intellectual. But we may not be always able to connect and enjoy it as a piece of creativity or writing. The creative part is somewhere hidden there, or you have to be very intellectually upgraded to enjoy that. But in the case of literature from romantic literature, you are getting something which is for you, almost like written for you. You are enjoying it like anything. You are appreciating it like anything. So this is the beauty he talks about. That is, it can interest the mankind permanently to prefix a systematic defense of the theory upon which the poems were written. Now he tells that my preface is actually prefixed to defend the theory. This is a theory, you know. This movement, Romanticism, is of course a theory, and this is prefixed to defend the theory upon which the poems were written. What do you mean by defending? Defending means you are giving explanation, or you are making your points clear. You are making your stance clear. So of course we are criticized for these kinds of poetry, this new experiment, so that I have to defend myself. What I mean here, or what we people mean here with this new kind of poetry, or the new approach in writing. And adequately to display the opinions and fully to enforce the arguments would require a space wholly disproportionate to a preface. So, adequately to display the opinions. I am going to display my opinions, fully to enforce the arguments. That is, my arguments in a strong position. As you you see the court arguments. That is, the lawyer is arguing for the person whom he or she is representing, whom he or she is fighting for justice. So here it is about the arguments I am trying to enforce. That is, many oppositions might be there. The people may be talking against this new adventurous forms or new advent. But here I will be arguing, I will be enforcing the points very clear, so that you may think at least. Would require a space wholly disproportionate to a preface. Again, he talks about the disproportionate nature of his preface. What do you mean by disproportionate? Okay, you write a 5 or 6 or 7 page of a piece of writing and tell that you call that it is a novel. Is it possible? No. A 1-page poem you write and tell that this is my epic. Is it possible? No. So this is the way we have proportionate length decided for most kinds of literary genre. So a lengthy one. So otherwise it is a short story. And you cannot claim that I have written a novel after writing some 5 or 6 pages of a that is the way we have our common notion. And preface, of course, normally we see in some 1 or 2 pages of preface is over. normally. But here he makes, even we have only 12 paragraphs under prescription. Actually, the whole preface is in more than some 22 paragraphs, and it's almost with I'm sure it's in 14 pages in printed page. It is 14 pages. With the 12th paragraph we will end our discussion at UG level, but it is more than that. So actually, to see the length of the preface, it's somewhat a disproportionate level, but to make my arguments clear, I need this kind of a space. And then one more point he adds there: forms so materially different from those upon which general approbation is at present bestowed. Materially different. These forms are materially different from those upon which general approbation is at present bestowed. Which must be the forms upon which general appreciation or acceptance is at present bestowed. Can you type it down there? Anyone? Of course, it is not romantic literature. The Wordsworth or the poems by Wordsworth or Coleridge are getting general appreciation that time, but some other kind of poetry, which must be that poetry, or which must be the trend that was prevailing during that time. Please type down, some of you. Wordsworth and Coleridge were challenged by people who were actually didn't want to experiment or to bring some kind of a freedom oriented or somewhere theme based and something new of this kind. And that is why he tells that we didn't get much general approbation at that time. Another method, another writing style or team of people were getting, they were getting much approbation. Who were that? That's my question. It is the neoclassic rigidity or other, metaphysical poetry, very complicated kinds of writing. They were getting appreciation at present, that time. Actually, they were his contemporaries. It's not modern 20th or 21st century. Wordsworth was, they are contemporary, but his poems were of a different kind. Okay, so at the same time, as in 1798, 1800 time period, you could see a kind of surviving of the fittest mode of a fight between this metaphysical poetry and the romantic writing styles. So that these people, actually they were beginners and they had to challenge, or they had to face criticism. Fine. So that's all with the paragraph number 3.